Avowed's got its fair share of rare weapons. Think about wands, daggers, and add spears to that list. There's only 3 of them, unique ones at least, in the whole game. They're maybe not as fast as you would like them to be, but they do deliver pretty decent damage and stun at fairly long melee range. They cost quite a bit of stamina though to go ahead and use, blocking, so maybe bring a shield. Last thing to note as well, 2 of these spears you get basically by completing parts of the story, and it is kind of easy to miss one of them at least. And the other spear is part of you clearing out a giant dungeon, but also making a choice. Okay, starting off with Giant Slumber, which does a huge amount of stun and damage against vessels. Now vessels are pretty much the undead. Without spoiling the story, you need to complete the Naku Teduk basically location going through the dungeon, and it's a big part of the outer story in the Emerald Stairs. When you get to the temple, you'll basically go through the story parts, you'll open up a doorway, and then you can start exploring the dungeon. Word of caution though, at this point some big events happen, so maybe make sure you've picked up and done any of the side quests that you want to in the town of Eora. I've covered it numerous times in other guides as well. You may also want to see if you want to complete the Steel Resolve quest first. Doing that before completing the Awakened Soil, which is what this whole dungeon and quest is, can mix and change the game up. I highly recommend you watch my video if you really want more details about it. As you make your way through, there's a bunch of stuff you'll find, including an effigy necklace for the totem of Scan in the Emerald Stairs. After some big sections involving acid water, lots of skeletons and pretty challenging, you'll come to this relic where you can pick up Giant Slumber. Once you do, some spectres will spawn alongside one of the greater calamities. And yeah, it does power attacks, dealing moderate stun and 20% damage against vessels. So vessels are all skeletons but not spectres, or I do believe shadows. Enchanting it will give you power attacks dealing high stun, and they've a 10% higher chance of doing critical damage. And then if you do a parry option instead, it will give you 10% movement speed and 20% dodge distance for 20 seconds. So you could technically pick up the spear and then just head back out the way you came, but you're about halfway through the dungeon and it's a big story beat by the time you get to the end of it. There's no real way to dip out quickly. I don't think you can even fast travel from it, although don't correct me on that, or do correct me on that. But yeah, if you really want to get this spear sooner and you think you can take on the enemies because they'll be quite challenging, then go ahead and grab it and then come back later to finish off the story. Just don't go and speak to the big giant crystal until you're ready. I did show it at the start, but the Naku Teduk grounds are all the way to the southwest. So this next one's definitely a bit of a choice. You can get a powerful spear, umbers spear, or you can get a complete set of Storm Dancer armour, which is really good for shock classes. You need to head to Thirdborn, the town in Shatterscarp, the third zone, and then travel to the residential part of the map. It's not that large. To find a character called Kaipo. He's got a tall tale to tell and he's a bit of a celebrity for being a hero. He wants you to go and explore a crypt dungeon and basically bring him back a certain resource. So you need to go and explore the Sand Sea ruins all the way over on the east side, the right hand side of the map. In fact, you can't really get any further east, so yeah, here's a bit of a trek going through the map. Although there is a bounty for a pair of bandits extremely close, so maybe pick up that from the bounty board. And I highly recommend you explore the Sand Sea Oasis to the south. There's some pretty good loot there too, especially in the water. Now these ruins have a bunch of other unique stuff. You need one of the totem gems here inside these ruins, and that's what I did a guide for before. You'll also find a unique shield and yeah, a bunch of other good loot. So you can't really get in through the bar door, you're going to have to climb up and around, take care of the Xurips and a bear. And then if you parkour around, you'll see the broken stairway. About halfway down is where you actually find the gem, and if you keep going to all the way to the bottom, that's where you'll enter the dungeon. There is a gate that you can open so you can come back here if you're maybe not fully equipped right now. The Sagat Eye also activates level 15 and 20 ability points, also giving you damage reduction for 10 seconds, worth pointing out I guess. Watch my full guide on Whale to learn more. It's practically like a broken mine area at first, and there will be a funny sign that says to maybe not pull the lever. I'll leave it up to you if you want to, but if you're a completionist, you might want to consider it. Now normally with a dungeon like this, I might show you how to enter it and then maybe just a key points. But because there's so much good loot in here, I think it's worth going a bit step by step. But for now, in this first area, just call the lift up and then you go down to the second part. This next area, there's a bunch of traps and logs that will fall on the obviously rope, and actually you need them too, as it's the only way to get up to the next part. There's also a bunch of secret little doors that you can open too, and obviously fight some skellies. So yeah, make sure you break open that piece of wall and activate the shock trap to release the actual blogs. There's various different loot that you find once you've taken care of these guys. So when you're ready, you can then clamber up and jump across each one of the logs, then you'll be into the third part of this dungeon. There's a couple ways to go. If you go higher, you can actually sneak around some of the enemies that you're going to come across, or if you go down the main path route, you'll have to deal with a bunch of traps. We then have some powerful skeletons to take care of in this fourth part with some water. There's about 6 or 7 of them, so it ends up becoming a little bit tough, but nothing you shouldn't be able to handle. Obviously explore every nook and cranny, but particularly go for a swim in the water and you'll come across a brown dirty key on the floor here. Then go back to the steps, make your way up. On the middle level you'll find all of this as kind of scaffolding and area being worked on. There is a small switch here inside this triangle, and this is how you get a unique shield. It'll open up a secret door behind you. I've not really bothered doing guides for shields because quite frankly I hate using them, but you know, maybe I'll get round to it. The Desert's Bounty gives 20% resistance to fire accumulation during the day and 20% frost accumulation at night. If you make your way all the way up to the top, the brown key will open up this doorway and you can follow along and try and avoid these traps. It does say there might be a way to turn them off, I never worked it out. If you clamber down the sides instead of going across where the traps are, there is a big brown bear and there's a whole bunch of other loot that you might be able to go and find as well, including another secret door with just some resources. I'll let you work that out, as really the focus is on the spears. But yes, you'll come across this gate that obviously you can't get through, hence why you need to run through the traps with the flames above. In the end, I did the tried and trusted method of just running for my life. Made it through that and you'll be in the 5th big major area, I would call it. Inside the small circular archway area you'll find the object of the quest, and then you can clearly see there's a secret door. Pay close attention to these statues, you'll notice there's actually a switch on one of the eyes. It'll open up inside and you get the weather journal giving you more details about the quest that you came on. And that's actually it. When you go to leave, which there'll be a doorway leading conveniently to the start of the dungeon, you'll come across Kepo's basically granddaughter or daughter, and she's basically asking you not to deliver the item for whatever reason. And you've got a choice here. If you give her the heart of the Leviathan, she'll give you a complete set of Storm Dancer armour, which is good for avoiding range damage and giving resistance to shock accumulation. The gloves will give you 10% ability cast speed, and the power attacks deal 5% bonus shock damage. The boots give you 10% less incoming fire, frost and shock damage, and 10% shock damage for 10 seconds after dodging. And honestly, it's the deal of the century, getting a Storm Dancer ring, which gives you 10% shock damage too. Go ahead and ignore her please and return to Kepo. Give him what he wants and he'll give you Umbra's spear. Honestly, I would probably take the armour. Its power attacks deal a poison dart, and also provides 25% critical hit damage. So in theory that sounds good for sure, but I definitely feel it's like a pretty unique build with spears. But for sure it's nice seeing a unique ability with the poison dart. Get it enchanted and power attacks will launch a poison accumulation to nearby targets and nearby enemies, or a full combo attack slows the hit enemy and gives them 20% damage reduction for 10 seconds. But I'll leave it up to you. And the third and final spear is in the 5th and pretty much final zone more or less of the garden. What we're looking for is the Wayfinder spear, which does pretty much a massive stun. Not to mention a pretty formidable power lunge. So this one I'm not going to go through each beat of it because it is more or less an extended dungeon. It's not as open world as some of the other parts. I think I would be spoiling kind of these areas for you really if I go into too much detail. You learn a little bit more about Kai in one of the sections in this place, and then yeah, it's called the Mage Folk's Graveyard. Inside this ruinous area there'll be this little place here, so it's definitely worth making sure you bring Yatsli to get through this window, otherwise you won't be able to actually get the spear. Then you've got to use a shock ability to activate obviously the switch on the left. That will pretty much only activate one of the 3 currents that you need to provide to open the doorway. You actually head back outside to the Mage Folk Graveyard where you fought the 2 Mage Folk in the first place. you'll find another shock place on the right hand side wall beyond the entrance. Also look out for a small golden chest around here by them chains. In it you'll find the ring of amplification that does a lot more staggering hits with power attacks. I'm not gonna lie, I spent ages looking for the third one because I forgot to just look through this window and see the third and final shock that you needed to charge. I went around the map everywhere trying to find this third one instead of just looking through here. Inside the part of the open sarcophagus you'll find the wayfinder spear. And as said, it does high stun to nearby enemies with a full combo attack, or you can greatly increase the travel with your power attack. Enchant it and you can do high stun and shock accumulations to nearby enemies with a combo attack, or choose the option that killing an enemy gives you 30% move speed and 5% damage reduction for 20 seconds. I'm not going to lie, I wasn't its biggest fan, but you can see it does a huge amount of damage and stun there. It's a shame I was fighting mostly mage folk with it, so I didn't really get a good grasp at what it's like with other creatures. And of course, once you go to the garden, a little FYI, you won't be able to return. Not to the rest of the world and carry on your journey, but you do get that big warning, so it's not like I'm amazing or doing something here. It should warn you before you venture into it. So you're really using these weapons only for this zone. And maybe one final boss encounter. But of course, I'll leave that up to you, but yeah, I ended up switching out that spear because I just did not like it at all. But you guys, I'm sure, might be able to build something a bit better with it. Last thing to note, if you haven't got a max legendary weapon by the time you get here, and in fact they might all still have this anyway, you can't actually get any more gold. So make sure you've got plenty of gold so that you can go ahead and upgrade any of the weapons that you find in the garden to their max level. You will have opportunities to go ahead and get obviously more resources, and there are actually campsites where you can obviously upgrade and enchant your weapons. But I figure that's something worth bearing in mind. So let me know if it's been worth it maybe for you utilising some of these spears. Obviously you only get one of them relatively early game, but if I was being brutally honest, I just don't think any of them are really worth your time. But prove me wrong, tell me your build that you've used with spears, or converted one of your other builds to take advantage of it when you came across one of them. Go and check out the rest of my guides, and I'll see you for more Avowed stuff soon.